I am the member training officer for my committee this year. So I handle who is in the spotlight to train you each week, and this week I've anointed myself with that duty. The reason for that is anointment will form the basis of this training, given that we're talking about religion and debates. That's not the real reason, but okay, so debating and religion. It is a complex topic. It is not about each team getting up and vouching for the doctrine of one religion or another, and it is certainly not about an academic discussion about interpretations of that doctrine, although obviously doctrine that could be useful in the debate, but that's not where the primary clash is. Most of the time it is a clash, or maybe even a crash, depending on the quality of the debate. A clash of how those ideologies sit within a functioning democracy and whose rights are privileged over the other. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you a video of how I think most religions are depicted in most debates by what I might, assert as a left-leaning society. Okay, so a little bit dramatic, right? The reason that I chose to show that to you is to prove a couple of points. First of all, Bill Maher is a dickhead. Secondly, whilst if you watch Religulous, which actually makes a lot of sense in some areas and not a lot in others, the reason I showed you this was that this is what a lot of debates of university students, left-leaning people often degenerates into, which is assuming that anyone who is religious is somebody who believes they'll come back in the rapture on a white horse. That is not the belief held by most people in modern society, and obviously the people who subscribe to those religions, whether they be in this room or not. And it also is not debate winning to assume those things. So I wanted to show you that as the dark doomsday picture of how to lose a debate, because that is something that you shouldn't be engaging in. How do you win debates about religion? So all debates about religion are about trade-offs. So a religious right is a freedom like any other, which you balance against other freedoms which are important to that society. So like I said, these debates often degenerate into, religion sucks, look at all the evil things that they've been associated with, look at all the other things we could have. For example, like all of these other rights. So, those are the rights that are often compared in different religious debates. So it could be about the Catholic Church recognizing gay people and welcoming them into their community, and whether the doctrine should adapt to reflect that. It could be about freedom of expression, whether you have the right to criticize a religion. Equal opportunity, which some of you may have done at Easters in terms of employment and priests or whatever. Those are all rights that are traded off against freedom of religion. But freedom of religion is not just its own discrete entity that just exists and you have the freedom to enact that and, oh yeah, like that's a unilateral thing against all of these other things. Religion gives you a number of assets as well that you should associate with them in a debate. So most people associate, in the most passive way, a religious group with the community that they've grown up with and the love and the generosity associated with that community, whether it be Christian, Islamic, whatever. For some people, they are redeemed in the middle of their lives because it provides them with a sense of worth. Other people, it just provides structure in order for them to know what is important in their life and live their lives by that value. Or it brings in principles of generosity or whatever. All of those things are what people opt into to enhance their quality of life, much like this list here. You opt into your right to express your sexuality, you opt into your right to want to enjoy equal opportunity in employment. They result in that final nugget, which is the quality of life. So it is just the mechanism, and maybe this is a good sort of life thing to think about. Religion is it can be many people's mechanism to achieving a high quality of life. So that's how it should be perceived in a debate. Then the debate becomes about the choices that people make. Firstly, are they rational choices to opt into that way of conceiving your quality of life? And secondly, if you then presume that they are rational choices, are the rational choices of that group of people more important than the group that chooses the other side, which is secularism? So those are the two questions that you have to ask in those types of debates. Is there rational consent, and is that group important in the debate? Alright, so then we can't be naive about all the evils. Sorry, no. In this part of the training, we are naive about all the evils that religions conduct, depending on your persuasion. So, religions are good at a number of things. Because they exist and have existed for thousands of years, they bring infrastructure, they capitalize on people's altruism, and examples here provide, where they are good in society. that is a good thing that they administer for us, and it would be hard for somebody to fill that gap because they already exist and have existed for years. That's probably not a good enough reason in and of itself to allow religions to exist because they function as like a government-aided charity, but it's certainly there is good work that they do, and they are more able to do it because they captivate the attention of a large group of people, which say, if somebody, you know, but forcefully showing you images of African children on your TV might desensitize you and might not attract you to a cause, religion definitely compels people to act. So that could be an asset for religion. Then, within that, there is a model for government regulation of religious altruism. So that is, they facilitate or intervene to make sure that best practice is achieved, and then they can collaborate with those religions to make sure that they don't abuse their powers and proselytize. But proselytization is also controversial. Then there are the reasons, and I don't know why these are different fonts, sorry, different sizes, but whatever. There are reasons why you would ban freedom of religion, even in the context of them providing services. So they could exploit those services and become a monopoly on the services so there's no competition, there's no entrance for the public sector, and they proselytize. Why is proselytization bad, or what is the meaning of the word proselytization, for example, for the first part? Anyone?
Try and convince others to join your religion.
Right, okay, so you are using the charity and the aid you're giving as a little incentive, come get the aid, and then you're giving out a crucifix as well. Why is that a good or a bad thing, or a neutral thing? Why does it not matter? Why is it a bad thing? It's not bad, it's okay. Yep.
It's not allowing people to freely opt into all those benefits you had before.
What do they then, what cages them? What makes them not free?
The fact that they, it's almost a quid pro quo means that between sort of, here's the good you get, now, you know, come and join us, whether that's implied or not, means that they simply can't make an unrestricted judgment as to whether they want to opt in for all of that.
And that, the debate then goes on to how that would inform their choices in their later life, and the first mover advantage of the Catholic Church being the provider of your food. Henry?
It makes it problematic for a secular government to help fund those sorts of charity services?
Yes, although the premise of that is that a secular government is the best way to go, whereas that's not a necessary assumption in some of these debates. Why is it an okay or a good thing or a neutral thing to proselytize?
Because you wouldn't get the charity without it.
Okay, sure. So that's like a sort of neutral, like, I'd rather have food and a crucifix than no food and no crucifix.
If it was a private company or something providing the same service, they'd be giving you their business card.
Exactly. So it's a marketplace of ideas, everyone's allowed to compete, and if the Christian church has the capacity to convince people, so be it. Or I'm just using Catholicism as the example, because that's the church I was dragged to every Sunday, but I'm sure you all have your own examples of that. Alright, so now we move into the less positive part of it. So, what is the pernicious influence of religions in institutions where they are forbiddingly and expressly meant to stay out of? So, lobby groups that you should know the name of are the ones that I've written up there. This PowerPoint will be available, so you can just take them, and I think the hyperlinks are still there if you want to click on where they go. So the first type of influence is a lobby group. So they literally just band together, they make their demands, and they say, we are part of the electoral process. If you want to listen to us, we're important. So that's probably the least on the scale of pernicious, although campaigners maybe fall into that, whatever. Finance. That is the most pernicious. That means they tie outcomes or religious outcomes to the type of finance that they give. So a politician's survival is based on their religious affiliations or their financial affiliations. So there's an example here where there is a loophole within the way we categorize or make it open to everyone that a religion is donating to a financial to a government. So it can be hidden. It might not even be disclosed to a public that, you know, the Friends of Committee of National Legislation, which is a Christian group, has donated something, because they're not mandatorily forced to do it. How did that law come to be? It was probably tied to the finance that was given to the people that legislated on it, right? Like, this is an important part of influence when it comes to outcomes. But, I mean, the point of this on the other side of the debate is that lots of people have lots of access to different politicians and also have lots of money. So you have to compare those lobby groups and those financial donations. There are some examples there for you to use. where people have been advocates for policy in the public sphere. So you can see Cardinal George Pell threatens to excommunicate politicians who vote in favour of stem cell research, right? Like, that is an important communicative message where a leader of a church, like, I would say blind followers, but followers nonetheless, if your leader says something is wrong, those followers translate into voters, translate into decisions made in a democracy. Otherwise, you can just say, well, that could be defeated in a point of public policy, and Penny Wong or somebody equally as progressive can just speak out against it, and maybe people should face those charges in a public domain in order to defeat them wholeheartedly and thoroughly, and we shouldn't have to ban that type of speech. But those are the types of issues that we're talking about. Again, examples that you can use in future debates. You could also read, so we'll leave it there, and now I'm going to take it away. All right. Religious political parties. Am I going over time, by the way? Yeah. Okay, so this is, I wanted to put an arrow here, but I didn't bother. So this is the spectrum of how we go down, like, extreme political parties. So Family First, I don't, like, they're stupid, but they're not extreme. Like, you know, they don't have that much influence, but they make pretty explicit demands about what they think is a good way to live Australian life. But they just exist on the political spectrum. The Justice and Development Party within the Turkish government is another explicitly religious party. They're sometimes termed as Islamists, but they believe that women should wear burqas, for example. Like, they believe in the doctrines of Islamism being lived in life, and that the government should legislate on those beliefs. But they're not necessarily harmful, because they are an interplay of a number of moderate religious political parties that moderate their views. Ennahda exists within Tunisia. They are probably explicitly Islamist. They base themselves on wanting Islam to be in democracy. But there's a good side of them too. For example, they have a compulsory women's participation element to make sure that women are represented within the party, and to combat the inherent patriarchy that exists within the rest of what was a Tunisian autocracy. So to every religious party, there is another side. Muslim Brotherhood, obviously, like, very controversial. I think potentially moving away from being an obviously awful influence in Egyptian policy to being the most moderate and most accessible influence in Egyptian policy, but that is obviously up for debate. Maybe tonight. I don't know, I didn't set the topic. But they also have a good side to them. The way you figure out whether these political parties have a good side is to ask the questions that I've asked, although this is obviously not an exhaustive list. So firstly, to what extent do those parties capitalize on their religion for membership? So are people just supporting them because they're Christian, or do they have substantive values? Secondly, do they constructively engage with other parties? That is really important in terms of the last two, because as the third question indicates, if they aren't engaging with other political parties, that means they don't have an authentic and genuine commitment to the democracy. They're just, like, dilly-dallying until on their road to theocracy, right? That second question, and if you can give examples of, say, the Muslim Brotherhood willing to engage with the Security Council of Armed Forces and form a coalition and barter on that basis, that, or Muslim Brotherhood drafting a constitution for democracy or whatever, those examples demonstrate that they're committed to the ideals of democracy, but working within a framework of Islamism. So they're not necessarily one way or the other. The point of this slide is, calling a party religious in a debate is not enough to justify them being out of the political system, even if they operate within a secular environment. There are lots of other countries that have religious parties in them, for example Malaysia, but these or India, but these are the examples that I've chosen, and this is the scale. But these are the questions you need to ask to figure out whether they're good or evil. Okay, so again, this will be up on the website, but these are examples where we restrict freedom of religion within our day-to-day life. So animal sacrifice, female genital mutilation is probably a really extreme example. Any questions? Like, is anybody stressed out by any of these examples, or never seen them before? Or, no? Polygamy, there's a list of places where it's legal, illegal. That, I think, is a genuinely contentious one. Like, I don't personally see the difference. Like, I don't see why it's not legal other than some people choose to exploit it, but that is a perfectly okay way to legislate. But these are all contentious things, but the extrapolation that legislators and people in debates make is, what is the harm to the individuals involved in those religious practices, and how much capacity do they have to consent to those practices, or are they foisted upon them by the community existing out? So again, rationality and how important is that group to society? Those are the two questions underpinning the whole presentation. cults. So this year, I took this from Politico. Rick Perry obviously is a Mormon, but tries to underplay that so that he'll probably get the nomination. I think he'll get it anyway, but well, particularly now. But this quote: Romney experienced pushback this year from evangelicals who view the Mormon faith as at odds with the historic Christian doctrine of the Trinity. They question whether Mormons even believe in Jesus Christ, even though the official name of the religion is the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. One prominent Texas cleric who supported Rick Perry called the church a cult. I would agree. Other examples of cults are Mormons, Scientologists, Raelism, which is a UFO religion. You can see other cults, and they exist in lots of different countries at this link. So, you should draw upon examples that don't only exist in the first world, but there are examples in different geographies. The point about this is, cults distinguish themselves from religion based on the rationality or the control that the cult seeks to assume of the people within it, or subsume of the people within it. So Scientology, for example, not only seeks to control your mind in the same way religions do, but controls a significant proportion of your income as well. So those are the things that distinguish these cults from religions. You cannot basket all religions in the same group as cults because there is a distinct difference. That being said, cults also have a good side to them. Maybe some people like eating the placenta of their child after they die, whatever an example is. The point is, again, rationality and consent, how important are they? Alright, so I've been a bit glib for a while, but that's the basic things. Do you have any questions about this presentation? I don't purport the views of Bill Maher, but I think these are just some useful things to do in religious-oriented debates. Any questions?